My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am 35 years old. 4 days ago, I sat in a small lawyer's office. The room was quiet and still. There was a wooden desk, 2 chairs, and a window with soft afternoon light coming through the blinds. The lawyer slid a single piece of paper across the desk toward me. I looked at it for a long time. Then I did something that surprised even me. I laughed. Not a polite little laugh. A real, deep laugh. The kind that starts in your stomach and comes out before you can stop it. The lawyer raised his eyebrows. He asked if I needed a moment. He asked if I wanted some tea. I said no. I just kept staring at that paper. That moment was so strange. My parents had not spoken to me in over 2 years. No phone calls, no birthday messages, no texts, no emails. Not even a single word passed through any of our relatives. Just complete, total silence, like I had never existed at all. And now, after all that silence, their lawyer had sent me a letter. They needed my signature so they could sell my grandmother's old cottage, the one place in my entire life that had ever truly felt like home. That letter was supposed to take something from me. It was supposed to be the final move in a long game I had already lost. But instead, it gave me something I never expected. It showed me that someone had loved me enough to protect me, even from beyond the grave. Before I tell you what I found and what happened in that lawyer's office, I need to take you back to the dinner that broke my family into pieces, back to where it all began. I grew up in a small town in rural Ohio, the kind of town where the roads are quiet and the sky is very wide, where people go to the same church their parents went to, where the families have been neighbors for 3 or 4 generations, where everyone knows your face before they know their name. My father, Robert Mitchell, was a well-known man in town. He worked as the head of a local insurance office. He was always dressed neatly, button-down shirts, polished shoes, a firm handshake. He spoke slowly and confidently, like every word he said was important. People respected him. My mother, Carol, organized events at the local community center. She ran the holiday food drives, the school fundraisers, the neighborhood cleanup days. She was the kind of woman who always brought homemade cookies to every event and always knew exactly what to say to make someone feel welcome. From the outside, we were a picture-perfect family. But inside that house, it was a different story. There were 4 of us, my parents, me, and my younger sister, Amanda. Amanda was 4 years younger than me, and from as far back as I can remember, she was the center of the family, the star, the one who mattered most. Amanda wanted ballet lessons. She got them without question. I asked once if I could try guitar. My mother said she would look into it. She never did. When Amanda turned 17, my parents bought her a used car. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. When I turned 17, I walked or took the bus. No one offered me anything. Amanda had the biggest bedroom at the front of the house, bright, spacious, with a window seat and a view of the garden. My room was small and at the back, pressed up against the wall that shared space with the boiler room. I learned to sleep through the hum and clank of it every night.
I want to be careful here. My parents were not cruel people in the way that word usually means. They did not shout. They did not threaten. There was no violence. It was much quieter than that, more invisible. They simply treated me as though I needed less, as though I was fine on my own and therefore did not require attention, encouragement, or investment. I was the background. Amanda was the main event. Whenever I tried to bring this up, carefully, gently, not wanting to cause a fight, my father had a phrase he always used. He would set down whatever he was holding, he would look at me with a patient expression, and he would say, "Amanda needs more support right now, Sarah. You have always been the steady one. That is your strength." Every time, the same words. And the painful truth is that I believed him. I took those words and held them close. I told myself that being the steady one was something to be proud of. I thought it meant my father saw something strong and reliable in me. What it really meant was that they had decided I could be overlooked without consequences. So from a very young age, I became completely self-sufficient. In high school, I worked part-time at a grocery store most afternoons and every Saturday. I saved my money carefully. I paid for my own school trips. I bought my own winter coat when mine wore out. I paid for my own driving lessons at 18 because no one offered to help. I stopped asking my parents for things because I already knew how it would go. They would find a reason to say yes to Amanda and a reason to say no to me, and they would both look completely comfortable doing it. So I stopped waiting for them to offer. I made my own way. I studied hard and worked harder. I stayed up late finishing assignments. I got a scholarship to a state university, and I took it. I was the first person in my immediate family to get a university degree, a degree in business management. I did it with no financial help from my parents, no emotional encouragement at home, and no one telling me they were proud. I woke up at 5:30 every single morning during those university years. I balanced classes and part-time work and the exhaustion of being completely on my own. And somehow, I made it through. My parents said they would come to my graduation. My mother picked out her outfit. She showed me a photo of it on her phone, a green dress with a matching jacket. My father asked which road to take to get to the campus. I reserved 4 seats in the family area, 1 each for my parents, for Amanda, and for my grandmother, Rose. She was my mother's mother. She was the one person in my family who had always made me feel truly loved. I was so happy. I remember thinking, maybe this will be the moment. Maybe this will be the day when they show up for me. Then my phone rang at 6:30 on graduation morning. It was my mother. Her voice was light and casual, like she was calling to confirm lunch plans. She said Amanda had a situation, a problem with her flat, a small leak in the bathroom that had suddenly gotten worse. It needed attention right away. My parents were going to help her sort it out. "You understand, don't you, love?" my mother said. "You are so capable. You do not need us there to feel proud of yourself." I stood in my graduation gown in the hallway of my student accommodation, and I did not say anything for a few seconds. Then I said, "Okay, I understand," and I hung up. I walked across that stage completely alone. I sat next to families I did not know, parents clapping and crying for their children, grandparents holding flowers. After the ceremony, I took a photo of myself outside the hall using the timer on my phone. I am smiling in it, but my eyes are very tired. Later that afternoon, my grandmother, Rose, called me. Her voice was warm and a little rough, the way it always was. She said, "Sarah, I am so proud of you, more proud than I know how to say. And do not worry, my darling, I have already sorted it." I did not understand what she meant. Not that day. I would understand much later.
I was 28 when I met James O'Coffer. I did not meet him at some fancy event or through a mutual friend. I met him because he was fixing the plumbing in the building where I had just started as an office manager. He was crouched under a sink in the staff kitchen, humming something to himself, completely in his own world. I said good morning. He knocked his head on the pipe above him. We both laughed. James ran his own small plumbing business. He had started it himself from nothing, a few years before we met. He worked early mornings and long afternoons. He drove a white van with his company name on the side. He wore work boots every day and always had a pen tucked behind his ear, even when he did not need it.
He was not what my parents would have chosen for me, but he was one of the most genuine people I had ever met. On our second date, he showed up with a small bunch of flowers wrapped in newspaper because the shop near his job only sold single-stem roses, and he thought that seemed too serious for a second date. I laughed and told him the newspaper was a nice touch. He said he had ironed it first. He had not, but I loved him for saying it. We got serious quickly. James was honest and calm and steady in a way that felt safe. He did not play games. He did not hide things. What you saw was what you got.
We married when I was 30. A small and simple ceremony. Just close friends and a few relatives. A meal at a local restaurant afterwards. My grandmother Rose had passed away the year before, and I missed her terribly that day. My parents came to the wedding. They were polite, technically present, but they barely spoke to James. They did not try to know him. They sat through the meal looking faintly disappointed, the way people look when a restaurant gets their order slightly wrong. At a family dinner a few weeks after the wedding, my father waited for a quiet moment. Then he said, evenly and without raising his voice, "I thought you would have aimed a little higher, Sarah. A plumber, after everything you worked for." James kept his eyes on his plate. He did not react. He did not get angry. On the drive home, he was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I do not need your dad to think well of what I do, but I need him to think well of you, and he doesn't. I wanted to walk away from my family right then. I nearly did, but something kept pulling me back. My grandmother's memory, a stubborn hope that things might still change, a part of me that was not yet ready to accept that my own parents had simply decided I was not worth much. So I kept trying, until the dinner that ended everything, the dinner that broke us apart. It was a big Easter gathering at my parents' house, about 12 people, aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents, Amanda, James, and me. The table was full of food. The house smelled like roast and flowers. It should have been a good day. Before we sat down to eat, Amanda found me in the kitchen and closed the door behind her. She needed money. 4,000 pounds. She said it was for a new business idea she was starting, an online clothing shop. She needed it quickly. This was the third time in 2 years she had asked me for money. I had said yes both times before. This time I said no. I said it as kindly as I could. I told her I did not have it to spare. I told her I was sorry. I meant it. She looked at me for a moment with cold, flat eyes. Then she walked out of the kitchen.
A short while later, we were all sitting around the table. Food was being passed, people were talking, and then my father put down his fork and spoke, loudly and clearly, so that everyone at the table could hear. He said, "I have to say I am very disappointed. A family that cannot support each other is not much of a family at all." He was looking at me when he said it. The table went quiet. I looked around at the faces of people I had known my entire life. I waited for one of them, just one, to say something, to question him, to ask for the full story, to push back. No one did. My aunt looked at her glass. My cousins looked at each other. My mother reached for the breadbasket. I understood in that moment, fully and completely, perhaps for the first time, that this was never going to get better. These people had already decided who I was to them, and it was not much. I did not make a scene. I did not cry or shout. I folded my napkin. I stood up. I said goodbye to my cousin's little girl, who was sitting in a high chair nearby, and touched her hand gently. Then I walked to the front door, and I left. James followed 2 minutes later without being asked. I never went back to that house.
After that Easter dinner, my parents did not reach out. Not once. No call. No message. Nothing. But silence does not mean doing nothing. And my parents were not doing nothing. In the weeks and months that followed, I slowly learned that my parents had been telling a different story to the rest of the family. They told people I had become difficult, that James was isolating me from everyone, that I was struggling and needed help, that I was seeing a counselor for serious emotional problems. I was not seeing a counselor. They invented it. But the story spread before I had any chance to correct it. One by one, family members went quiet. Relatives who had known me since I was born stopped texting. Cousins I had spent summers with as a child suddenly had nothing to say to me.
Only my cousin Nina stayed. She called, she visited, she asked for my side of things. She refused to simply accept my parents' version as the truth. James and I moved to a town about an hour away, far enough to feel free, close enough that I could tell myself I had not completely run. Life continued. I was promoted to a senior management position at work. James expanded his business, hired more staff, and started winning bigger contracts. We bought a small house with a garden. We got a dog, a big, clumsy, wonderful dog named Biscuit. It was a real life, a good life, but underneath everything, there was always a quiet weight. Every Christmas, I would sit with my phone in my hand, half expecting it to ring. It never did. And then, just over 2 years after that Easter dinner, a letter arrived in the post.
The envelope was plain white, with a solicitor's name printed in the top left corner. I did not recognize the firm. I opened it, standing at the front door, still in my coat. It was a letter from my parents' lawyer. My parents had found a buyer for my grandmother Rose's cottage, her old stone house in the countryside, the one she had lived in for 40 years. The sale was nearly complete. They just needed one final thing: my signature
on a form releasing any claim I might have to the property. I read the letter twice, standing up. Then I sat down on the bottom step of the stairs. 2 years of silence. 2 years of nothing. 2 years of them telling relatives I was unstable and troubled. And now they needed my signature.
Not a hello, not an apology, not a single word about everything that had happened. Just, please sign here so we can complete the sale. My grandmother's cottage was the one place in my entire childhood that had felt completely safe. Every school holiday, I would go there. Grandmother Rose would be waiting at the door before my car had even stopped. She would make strong tea and thick toast, and we would sit at her kitchen table for hours. She would ask me questions, real questions, about what I was thinking and what I cared about, and she would listen to every word I said. She never compared me to Amanda. She never made me feel small. She just loved me, fully and without conditions. And now my parents wanted to sell her home. I sat on that step for a long time. Then I remembered something, a box I had kept but never opened. When my grandmother Rose passed away, I was the one who helped sort through her cottage. My parents were too busy, they said. Amanda had other things on. So I did it alone, over a long weekend in October, with the radio on and tears I kept wiping away before they could fall properly. At the back of her bedroom wardrobe, behind folded blankets and old shoeboxes, I had found a small tin box. It was round and flat, the kind that used to hold biscuits. It had a painted lid with a picture of roses on it. My grandmother had always loved roses. It was one of the reasons her name suited her so perfectly. I had taken the tin box home. I put it on the shelf in my bedroom, and I never opened it. It felt too painful, too soon. I told myself I would open it one day when I was ready. After reading that letter from the lawyer, I went to my bedroom and took the box down from the shelf. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the lid. Inside, folded carefully and wrapped in a small piece of tissue paper, was an envelope. It was sealed. My name was written on the front in my grandmother's handwriting, neat and looping, exactly as I remembered it from birthday cards she had sent me every single year of my life without fail. Underneath my name, she had written, "For my Sarah, open this when you need to remember that you are loved." My hands were shaking. I opened it carefully. Inside was a legal document, a property trust. It had been drawn up by a solicitor 9 years before my grandmother passed away. The document clearly stated that the cottage, her house, her land, everything, had been placed in a trust in my name, not my parents' name, not Amanda's name, mine alone. She had gone to a solicitor 9 years earlier, quietly and on her own. She had explained what she wanted. She had signed the papers. She had made it completely legal. And then she had put the document in a tin box with a picture of roses on the lid and left it for me to find. She had known, all those years ago, she had known that someone might one day try to take the one thing she most wanted me to have, and so she had made absolutely certain they could not. I sat on that bed, and I did not move for a long time. I just held the paper and let everything sink in. I have already sorted it. That is what she had said to me on the phone the afternoon of my graduation,
when I had walked across a stage alone and taken a photo of myself with a timer. I had not understood it then. Now I understood everything. That evening, I called the solicitor whose name was on the trust document. The firm was still in business. A solicitor confirmed everything I had read. The cottage was mine. It had been mine for 9 years. My grandmother had made sure of it. The next morning, I called the lawyer handling my parents' sale and arranged a meeting. When I arrived at the office, my father was already there. He was sitting in a chair across from the desk, wearing a neat jacket, looking composed and certain. He looked up when I walked in, and I could see the surprise on his face. I think he had expected me to simply post back a signed form. The lawyer went through the situation. My father explained that the cottage had been in the family for a long time, that the money from the sale was needed urgently, that Amanda's business was in serious trouble, and this was the only way to help her. He looked at me and said, "You have not visited that cottage in years, Sarah. It is sitting empty. The sensible thing is to let it go and let the money help the people who need it." I looked at him for a moment. Then I took my grandmother's trust document out of my bag and placed it on the desk.
The cottage already belongs to someone. It belongs to me. Grandmother Rose made sure of that 9 years ago. My father's expression shifted. The certainty left his face. He picked up the document and read it. Then he read it again. Then he looked up at me. He said it was probably a mistake, that my grandmother had not been thinking clearly, that the document needed to be properly investigated. I said it has already been confirmed by the solicitor who drew it up. It is completely legal and has been for 9 years. He said I was making things unnecessarily difficult. He said the family was struggling. He said I was being selfish and hard-hearted. I said, "You did not call me for over 2 years. You told our whole family that I was unstable and that James was controlling me. You did not come to my graduation because Amanda had a leaking tap. And now you want me to sign away the one thing my grandmother left me, so Amanda's business does not fail." I paused. Then I said, very quietly, "No." My father stood up. He straightened his jacket. He said something under his breath that I chose not to respond to. Then he walked out of the office. The lawyer poured me a glass of water without being asked. I drank it slowly. The cottage was not sold. My parents had no legal right to it, and there was nothing they could do to change that. My grandmother had closed every door they might have tried to walk through. Amanda's business collapsed a few months later. I heard about it through Nina. I did not feel glad about it. I did not feel anything simple about it. I just felt the sadness of watching a family choose a favorite child so completely that they built their entire financial hope on her, and the tired, quiet hurt of being the one they had never chosen at all. My parents have not been in touch. I do not expect that to change. James and I drove to the cottage on a Sunday in early spring. The lane leading up to it was a little overgrown. The front gate needed a new hinge. There were weeds along the path where my grandmother used to grow her flowers. But the house itself was solid, strong and real, exactly as I remembered it. The stone walls, the low ceilings, the smell of the place, old wood and fresh air, and something I could not name but recognized immediately.
We spent 3 weekends putting it right, clearing the garden, fixing the gate, cleaning every room from top to bottom. James repaired a broken window frame and some old guttering. I planted roses along the front path, deep red ones, because those were the ones my grandmother had always loved most. The first morning I woke up there, I made tea and walked outside in my slippers and stood in the garden in the early morning quiet. The birds were singing. The air was cold and clean. The sun was just starting to come over the hills. I thought about my grandmother, about all the mornings I had sat at her kitchen table and felt, for a few hours, completely safe and completely known. About the way she listened to me. About the way she asked questions and waited for real answers. About the fact that even when she was gone, she had found a way to reach across the years and hold something in place for me. I cried, not from sadness, not from anger, from the feeling of something true finally being allowed to exist out loud. She saw me. She always saw me. I have thought about why I wanted to share this story, and I keep coming back to the same reason. I know I am not the only one who grew up feeling like the wrong child, the one who was passed over again and again, so quietly and so consistently that you started to wonder if you were imagining it. I know there are people listening to this who were called the strong one, or the capable one, or the one who does not need as much, and who eventually understood that those were not compliments. They were excuses, ways of justifying giving you less while expecting the same from you. And I know there are people who, even after years of being pushed aside, still sat with their phone on Christmas morning, hoping for a call. Because that is what love does. It hopes longer than it should. If you are one of those people, I want to say something to you directly. The fact that your family did not choose you does not mean you were not worth choosing. It means they failed to see something real and valuable and true. That failure is theirs. It is not yours.
My grandmother, Rose, could not fix my family. She could not make my parents see me differently or treat me fairly. She could not be there at my graduation. She could not stop the silence or the lies they told about me. But she could leave a record, a permanent, legal, undeniable record that said, I see her. I have always seen her. She matters to me more than anyone knows. That is what the cottage was. Not just a building, not just a piece of land. It was evidence. Evidence that I had never been invisible, not to her. Evidence that someone had loved me carefully and deliberately, and for a very long time.
If there is a person in your life who truly sees you, a grandparent, a friend, a teacher, a partner, please tell them what that means to you. Those people are rarer than they should be, and their love is the kind that lasts. And if you are still waiting for your family to finally see you, I hope you find your tin box. I hope you find your proof, because you deserve it. Not one day, right now, exactly as you are. Thank you so much for being here with me today and for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. I read every single one. Take care of yourself. I will see you next time.